Hello, today we're going to be looking at decimal place values. So we're going to be looking at these numbers where they are. The position of a digit in a number gives the value of that digit. So we've got millions, we've got 100,000s, we've got 10,000s, thousands, hundreds, and so on and so forth. So the further left the digit, the greater its value. And the further right the digit, the lesser its value. I'm going to start by adding and subtracting decimals. For example, if we've got 1.7 plus 5.73, we're going to put these digits in the position that these decimals will align each other. So we've got 1.7 and 5.73. Here I've only got one number after the decimal point, so what I'm going to do is to add a 0. So if I'm adding these two numbers, I'm going to add a 0 at the end, because 1.7 is one decimal place and 5.73 is two decimal places. So if I add these two numbers, I'm going to get 0 plus 3 is 3, 7 plus 7 is 14. I write down 4 and then carry the 1 over to the next. So it becomes 2 plus 5, which will give us 7.43. Now, if I have to do another example, subtracting decimals, 3.35, take away 1.74. For this one, we have seen that they both have two decimal places. So I wouldn't need to add a 0 at the end. So if I subtract 1.74 from 3.35, 5 take away 4 from it will give you 1. 3 take away 7 from it cannot go. So what we do is we borrow 1 from here. We're left with 2, so the 1 goes in front of 13. So if we take away 7 from 13, we've got 6. We'll put the decimal point. We've got 2 left. So if we take away 1 from 2, we've got 1 left. So this is the answer for adding decimals and subtracting decimals. Right, next we're going to do would be to multiply and divide by powers of 10. So if I have 85 multiplied by 10, to multiply these two numbers without a calculator, what I do is, because I've got 10 multiple, I've got to multiply 85 by 10. So what I do is I simply add 0 at the end. If I have 85 multiplied by 100, because I've got 2 zeros here, I'm only going to add 2 zeros at the end. So whatever number you're given to multiply by multiples of 10, you need to add the number of zeros at the end. Now, if I've got 7.6 multiplied by 10, because I've got 7.6, what I need to do is to move this decimal point to the right. So when you're multiplying by powers of 10, you have to move the decimal point to the right. So I'm going to move this to the right. So my decimal point is here now. So that would be 76. Now, if I give another example of multiplying and multiplying by powers of 10, what I'm going to do is take, for example, 0.26 multiply by 100. So multiplying by 100, I'm moving this decimal point here because this is 2 decimal places and I've got 2 zeros. I'm going to move the decimal point 2 spaces to the right. 1, 2. My answer becomes 26. So remember that if you're multiplying, the zeros, the decimal point goes to the right. If you're dividing, the decimal moves to the left. Now we're going to have some examples dividing. So let's take, for example, 6.8 divided by 10. 6.8 divided by 10. So what I'm going to do now, because it's division, I'm going to move 1 space to the left because I'm multiplying by 10. 1. And then I put my decimal point and add 0. So for this one, the answer is going to be 0.68. If I take a look at another example, I've got 24 divided by 10. In this one, I do not have a decimal anywhere, but I have to divide 24 by 10. So what I do is I move the decimal point to the left. So let's say the decimal point is here. So I'm going to move 1 space to the left. And I've seen the decimal point will be in between 2 and 4. So my answer is going to be 2.4. So whenever you're multiplying by multiples of 10, you have to move to the right. You're dividing by multiples of 10, you have to move to the left. So let's take one more example. 3.56 divided by 10. This is where the decimal point is. So I'm going to move this decimal point 1 space to the left. So my answer becomes 0.356. Okay. Now what we're going to do now will be ordering decimals. Ordering decimals. In ordering decimals, it is easier to put the decimals in order if they have the same number of digits after the decimal point. So for example, if I have 0.15, 0.203, 0.6, 0.06. So what we're going to do now is to look at the decimals to find which one has the most number of digits after the decimal point. Now we can see that this one has most number of digits. Now the second step we're going to do will be to add zeros to the other decimals so that they have this number of digits after the decimal point. Right, now the last step will be to put the numbers in order of size. So if I put the numbers in order of size, I've got 0.1, I've got 0.2, I've got 0.6, and I've got 0.0. Okay, so this one becomes the first one, 0.06, and then the next becomes this one, 0.150, and the third one, and the last one. So when we look in here, we can see that the decimals has been rearranged. Okay, let's have another example. Alright, we're going to add extra zeros to the ones that are not up to 3 digits. Now we can see the smallest and the largest number. So when we look on here, we can see that the first digit is just the zeros before the decimals. So now we have, after the decimals, we've got 6, we've got 5, we've got 5, and we've got 5 here. So we're going to now look at the second one, the second digit, to see if they have the same. So we've got 0, we've got 1, we've got 3. So the first number we're going to look at will be 0.500, and then the second one would be this, 0.510, and the third is 0.530, and the last one is 0.613. So this is the best way to order the decimals. This is the best way to order decimals. When you're giving questions like this in the exam, make sure that you have all the digits being the same. So we always have to look out for the decimals to find which one has the most number of digits. So once we have that, we'll be able to do this. The next we're going to be looking at will be multiplying and dividing the decimals. So if we multiply in the decimals, for example, we have 27.3 multiplied by 0.05. The first step to doing this will be to ignore the decimals. So if we ignore the decimals, we count the number of decimal places in the question, and then we put that number of decimal places in the answer once we've worked it out. So to work this, the first step is ignore the decimal. So to work this out, we've got 5 times 3 is 15. We write 5. We hold on to 1. 5 times 7 is 35 plus 1 is 36. We hold on to 3. And then 5 times 2 is 10 plus 3 is 13. So we have our answer as 1,365. Now, counting the number of decimal places in the question, we've got 1 decimal place, and then we've got 2 decimal places. So if we have 1 decimal place here and 2 decimal places here, we add them together to give us 3 decimal places. So because we have to put back the number of decimal places or decimal points in the answer, what we do is we start counting from the right. So assuming the decimal point is here, so we start counting. So we're going to count 3 decimal places. 1, 2, 3. So our answer becomes 1.365. Now, if we want to check if we got the answer right, we have our calculator. This calculator is the best calculator to use during your calculator exams. So we've got 27.3 multiply by 0.05. So we can see that the answer is still the same, 1.365. Now the last topic we're going to do for this session will be to divide decimals. We're going to divide decimals. Now to divide decimals, let's give an example of dividing decimals. So if we have 259.6 divided by 6. So because this is dividing decimals, we're not going to ignore the decimal places. The reason is we've got a whole number and then dividing, we've got this number with a decimal, one decimal place dividing a whole number. So I'm going to use the long division method to do this. So this one comes in here and then this is here. So I'm also going to leave this decimal here because once I get here, I'm going to put the decimal. So 6 cannot go into 2, but it can go into 25. So 6 going into 25 or 25 going into 6 will give me 4. So 6 times 4 is 24. If I take that away, I'm going to get 1 left. Because I have 1 left, I have to bring down this 9, making it 19. So 6 going into 19 would give me 3. Because 6 times 3 is 18. I do the same again. I've got 1 left. So I put that one here, making 16. But just remember that we've got this decimal point here. So what I do is to put the decimal point and then bring down this 6. So 6 can go into 16. How many times? 2 times. Because 6 times 2 is 12. So I keep doing this until I get to where the examiner has asked me to stop or what the question is telling me to do. Alright, so now we still go ahead. Can 6 go into 4? No, we add 0. So 6 going into 40 would give me 6 because 6 times 6 is 36. So you can see that we've got reoccurring 6, 6, 6, 6, 6 all the way.